everyone. This is Lisa. I am here to basically wrap up Judges for you. I wanted to kind of review with you a little bit just so that you could kind of remember. I know it's been quite a while since we've been able to get together and actually work on Judges, so I wanted to kind of review with you a little bit. If you remember the last few lessons that we did, we were talking about Israel and how they basically they were always in this cycle of listening to God, doing what God said, and then all of a sudden they got into disobedience, and then God punished them, and it was usually around 40 years if you remember correctly. We were looking at that before. And then all of a sudden God finally says, okay, I'm going to save you with a judge, and then the cycle goes back around and around and around. So when we were looking before, Judges 20, or actually it was 19, remember the priest, or the Levite, actually, it wasn't the priest, but the Levite had taken a concubine, and he went, and the concubine basically left him and went back to her family, and then he came and tried to find her, and ended up finding her, and then they were gonna go back home, but then they decided to stay in Gibeah, which was actually from the tribe of Benjamin, which was interesting because of the fact that they were gonna stay in a land where it wasn't part of Israel, and he decided to not do that. So they were in the marketplace, and it ended up being that the men took this woman because they were trying to take the Levite, and the gentleman that had taken them into his home that night basically said, take the woman instead. And by the end of the night, it ended up being that she was dead because they had brutally hurt her. So the Levite was so angry about this and upset that he actually, remember what we talked about, cut her into pieces and sent each piece to a tribe of Israel. Well, tribe of Israel got really upset about that, obviously. All of Israel got really upset about that, and ended up coming together and basically made war against Benjamin, because Benjamin was the one, the tribe of Benjamin was the one that had done that, or had been involved in that. And remember that the tribe of Benjamin had said, hey, we're not gonna give up these guys from Gibeah, we're gonna go ahead and protect them. So they went to war and ended up through several things happening, which happened in Judges 20. If you want to take a look at that, you can. They ended up taking over and basically brutalizing Benjamin, and ended up basically taking him out completely. So when we go into Judges 21, they're looking at possibly, it says, wives provided for the tribe of Benjamin. So I'm going to read a little bit so that you can kind of get a feel for exactly what is going on, and then we'll kind of talk about it a little bit. So it says, Judges 21:1 is, now the men of Israel had sworn at Mizpah, none of us shall give his daughter in marriage to Benjamin. And the people came to Bethel and sat there till evening before God, and they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly. And they said, O Lord, the God of Israel, why has this happened in Israel, that today there should be one tribe lacking in Israel? And the next day the people rose early and built there an altar and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the people of Israel said, which of all the tribes of Israel did not come up in the assembly to the Lord? For they had taken a great oath concerning him who had not come up to the Lord to Mizpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death. And the people of Israel had compassion for Benjamin their brother, and said, one tribe is cut off from Israel this day. What shall we do for wives for those who are left, since we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them any of our daughters for wives? So when you look at this chapter, as I was kind of looking and doing my research on it, I realized that they had kind of, if you ever get mad at someone or mad at like a sibling and you kind of go overboard, that's kind of what happened. The tribe of Israel was trying to do what was right by the Lord, but at the same time they actually went overboard to the point where they were saying, now, you know, no wives are going to come from you know, the tribe of Benjamin and all of that. And so they ended up saying that they couldn't have wives from that, or have wives from that tribe. And so now they're realizing and saying, well, if we don't have wives for the tribe, then we can't keep the tribe going, and realize that that was actually a very hasty decision. And so now they're trying to figure out, okay, now how do we fix this problem? When they decided to go and offer sacrifices, they realized that one of the tribes wasn't there, which was Jabesh Gilead, which is actually part of the Benjaminite tribe. And so they decided that they were going to send from their congregation 12,000 and actually go and kill those men, and I think also the women too. And so once they did that, they ended up keeping the virgins so that they could use them for their tribes, or for the tribe of Benjamin. Sorry. So then they did this, and they actually went back there. If you remember, some of the Benjaminites were actually hiding in a cave. It was about 300 of them, and they decided that they were going to use these young virgins from Jabesh Gilead to actually give them wives. Well, when they did that, they realized they didn't have enough, and so they ended up doing that, and then they realized, oh gosh, we don't have enough women for these men, so now what do we do? So what they ended up doing was they went, and I'm actually going to read a little bit more to you here. Okay, in verse 16, I'm going to Judges 21, verse 16, and it says, then the elders of the congregation said, what shall we do for wives for those who are left, since the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? And they said, there must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, that a tribe not be blotted out from Israel. Yet we cannot give them wives from our daughters, because remember, that was the promise that they had said, that they weren't going to do that. For the people of Israel had sworn, cursed be he who gives a wife to Benjamin. So they ended up going, and there was a yearly feast at the Lord at Shiloh, and there were women that were out there doing a dance. And basically what they did was they ended up having these men take a wife from the women that were dancing, and they just basically up and took them. And if you've ever seen, it's an old movie, but it's called Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. It kind of reminds me of that. Also, if you think about like Disneyland, when you see the men kind of chasing the women around in Pirates of the Caribbean, I kind of picture it that way. And they basically just came up and snatched them, and that was how they were able to get more wives. And so when they discussed, well, how are we going to handle the dads being upset about this, they ended up saying in verse 22, and when their fathers or their brothers come to complain to us, we will say to them, grant them graciously to us, because we did not take for each man of them his wife in battle, neither did you give them to them, else you would now be guilty. So they're saying, because you didn't actually give us your daughters, and they actually just took them, now you're not guilty of what we talked about with not giving our daughters over to these men of Benjamin. And so that's kind of how they worked around their promise, was that they ended up just having them come and kidnap them and steal them and take them for wives. The last thing I kind of wanted to bring out to you, because this is the last chapter of Judges, like I said, I wanted to kind of tie this up for you. The last verse in Judges, it says, in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. So even though they did this and they were trying to remedy the sin that had happened in Israel, they were still sinning. They were still doing what was right in their own eyes. And that's unfortunately a sad thing, because in all of Judges, God was giving them the judges, and they're still having this pattern going around and around where, again, they, listen to God, God saves them, they listen to God, they go for about 40, 50, 60 years, then God punishes them because they're not listening again, and then he has to bring in a judge, and then it goes all the way over again. So just remember that cycle that we had talked about several times in our stories, and that's just kind of where Israel was at this point. They were still doing what was right in their own eyes. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a good day.